Well, hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of Mel Sanders and Friends here on the Central Valley Talk Network. I am Mel Sanders along with Lawrence Cato and Miss Paula Massey. We have a special guest that will be joining us in a minute. But today is October the 7th, 2021. Man, this year's disappeared fast. God, it's almost Halloween time, and I know it'll be time for trick or treat. Where you got a bag, a special bag you're taking out this year?
Nope.
No, no
Nope.
candy, no
Don't come to
treats.
my house.
Oh,
Matter of fact, I'm coming to your house.
Yeah, well, I got some. Yeah, I got some peanuts and even apples and things like that that kids don't really like.
Oh,
We got
really?
some of those to give away, so we'll have some of those, a whole bunch of those, and I think they'll get the message and start skipping.
Turn the light off.
Yeah.
That's all. That works every year.
Oh, really? Is that how you do it?
Turn the light off. And you
Yeah.
put stakes out, bear traps,
Oh,
stuff
my
like that.
goodness. Oh,
I
yeah.
guarantee they won't come back
That's
next
right.
year.
You were a man in the pest control business.
Oh,
so you
yeah.
probably had a lot of those kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
gadgets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have some interesting conversation this evening. I asked Miss Tia Cruz to join us because both of us were a part of the old West Fresno Elementary School District and the Washington Unified School District. So I thought it would be a good idea to have a conversation and talk about a little bit of the history and what has gone on over the past 10 years. As you know, in 2010, the district was merged. The West Fresno Elementary School District was merged with Washington Unified. And from that, a lot of things transpired. Some good, some not so good. Probably more not so good than good. And I wanted to have a conversation and just kind of do a kind of a backtrack of what happened and some of the things that did happen that could have been differently to help our kids. Because I think the primary focus should always be on our children. But as most of you know, when you have to elect people in office, it becomes political. And so it doesn't just stay on the campus, it goes throughout the community. But welcome, Ms. Cruz. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Let's talk about a little of your tenure with the district. You started teaching when at the West Fresno Elementary School District?
I started as an administrator in 2007, and
Is that what
after that, I went into teaching.
So that's where you started in administration?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I didn't remember that. I thought you were a teacher and went to administration, but okay. And what was your experience like? Give us a little bit about what your experience was like, first as an administrator, since that's where you started, and then how did it impact the students?
That's a broad question. As an administrator, of course, I took on several challenges in trying to maintain a conducive learning environment with very little support, I would say, from surrounding administrators in the district.
What was
Same is true.
Let me ask you, the population of that district, what was it like in terms of ethnically? How did they break down the student population and staff population? What was it like? Because traditionally, when we think about West Fresno Elementary School District, you think the predominance of African Americans. But what was it really like? What was the numbers really like?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it was predominantly Hispanic students.
Majority?
After that, African American students. And as far as the staff, it was predominantly Caucasian. So that was the basic breakdown demographically at that time. And I believe it's still the same way presently.
When you look at that, how does that impact the staffing, the way it was staffed? How do you think that impacted the learning of the students during that time? When you have that kind of a
made the challenges even more and the learning gap even bigger. And I think that's part of the reason why I was brought on to try to fill that to fill that void. There is a basic breakdown of communication and understanding of relationships with the students and staff. So it was very hard to teach and to provide a successful education for students when the staff actually didn't have a grasp on what they needed and how to give what they needed.
So would you say that was a breakdown on the previous or administration or the ones that were your superiors, if you will, in terms of their involvement or oversight of the rest of the staff?
Yes, I do. And you would assume that anyone that's educated in a position to make hiring and firing decisions would have enough knowledge as to know who to hire and why and how.
Mm-hmm.
However, that didn't happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yes.
Well, I don't know. After the state came in and started doing what they did, I know as a member of the governing board at that time, most of our authority, matter of fact, all of our authority was suspended and given to a state administrator. But prior to that, it seems like there were some things that were happening that were good for the district. Number one, I think we made a real concerted effort to reach out to the traditional black colleges and recruiting some of their graduates to come and join our teaching team. But that probably lasted about a year, maybe, in terms of us making a real commitment to make that happen. But I'm wondering, how do you think an effort like that would have impacted the district in terms of how they, infiltrated that kind of culture when you have teachers that have been for so long doing it their way without any major inclusion?
I think it would have made a very big positive impact on the success of the student. The retention rate definitely would have probably changed. If you would have brought in those younger teachers with similar backgrounds, I believe that they would have been able to reach the students, motivate them, and even get them to pursue higher education, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
See, I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
When you said bring in teachers of similar backgrounds, are you talking about teachers that look like the students or African Americans? Because you made a statement that the teachers were predominantly white.
Yes.
And they probably were predominantly white female. And they probably wasn't from this area. And they probably came in to kind of work off their student loan. Am I somewhat correct in that?
To my knowledge, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And when I said that, I mean, yes, of course, students or teachers of color. Teachers of color, Hispanic and African American backgrounds are usually able to reach students that look like themselves even more so. Yes.
How many were on the staff at that time? Do you know the approximate number of teachers on both sides campuses? Did they have 100 staff classroom teachers, or what was the neighborhood of the staffing number one?
I think it was right below 100. I'm not positive, but I believe it was.
But
below
in that ballpark. Yeah. So I think in my tenure there was a handful of African American staffers, teachers in particular, credentialed teachers. They had a couple of other administrators, but the numbers were not near what we thought as a board it should have been, and we were moving in that direction to make a difference. But we weren't in the classroom. We weren't on the campus on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of things we didn't know, except if we talked to someone who brought it to our attention about some of the inequities that happened in the classroom. I know one thing I did notice, even when I was an employee there, which wasn't as bad as it got, but we found a lot of African-American young men in the offices of the principal. And just during teaching time, they would be in the hallways or in the offices of the principals. And I thought that was something that, how can you learn if you're in the class, you're in the principal's office? So those are the things that I thought we should have really been focusing on and trying to make a difference in that arena. And we were moving in that direction, like I said. But what were some of your challenges when you were trying to make some changes at the district? Because, correct me, was it 2019 or 2020 when you departed from the district?
Actually, it was just recently, 2021, February.
February 2021? Okay.
Yes.
So what were some of your challenges that you faced when you were? Because it's always good to ask somebody who had, boots on the ground, who could see things up close and personal. We hear about things, but we're not there in terms of community people and folks that are not in touch on a day-to-day basis.
Several different challenges in different areas. You got a lot of teachers with a lot of power, a lot of teachers who dictated what they wanted to do, what they wanted to teach,
To who?
and how they wanted to teach it.
To who? To the administration, or was this something that? What was the cause of them thinking they could just teach what they wanted?
Well, I think basically it kind of boiled down to everyone being friends, administrators and teachers, being friends and allowing their friends to do what they wanted to do, even though it wasn't in the better interest of students. As you spoke on, allowing students to be removed from classes, sitting in the hall and missing out on instruction, not having a solid discipline policy or matrix for students. And so it was kind of like a case by case situation a lot of times that were unfair to our students, not having the compassion to understand what the students were going through or why they were doing what they were doing. It was so much more of a punitive system than a rehabilitative system. So a lot of the students were really, really lost and would always seek teachers out that would understand them and could support them. And so it was just very difficult to be one of the only African-American teachers on the campus trying to support hundreds of students and trying to make them feel comfortable and educate them as to who they are and why they should be proud. Lack of support from the district. I will say the district before the immediate administrators or principals, because the principals did try. Some did, some did not, but those that did try, they weren't always successful because, again, like I said, a lot of friendships, a lot of nepotism, and a lot of not having any compassion for students. And I'm sad to say that you would think that anybody in the field of education would first have a heart for kids, but I've seen it firsthand that that's not the case. It's not even the case where they would even fake it. So it was very, very disheartening and very hard to do a job and be one of the only ones of color. Not only that, one of the only ones brave enough to stand up and speak to try to make a change.
Wow.
What kind of so what kind of support did you have from, or did you have any kind of support from some of the credentialed teachers I'm not talking about the administration, but some of maybe the classroom teachers. Were there a group of teachers that kind of counted on you or leaned on you for support?
Very much so. There was a few that shared my views and philosophy on education, and they were there. They were supportive, but a lot of times there were others that were supportive anonymously because of not wanting to be targeted. And I understood that, but they also understood the importance of standing up, trying to make a difference the best way that they could. So, and then again, it was difficult because you had other teachers that were kind of grouped up that were continually fighting you and fighting those teachers, making it hard to stand up and make a change. So, yes.
So let me ask you this. Maybe I should have asked you this earlier. Around the test scores, what was West Fresno's? What were their test scores like in comparison to the other schools in the county?
Well, no, I can't say specifically, but generally speaking, our test scores at one point were very, very low. They began rising. However, they were very, very low. And at one point, our special ed students were outperforming our African-American students.
Say that again.
Yes, at one point, our special ed students were outperforming our African-American students.
Regular classroom students.
Yes.
Wow.
Why was that?
Great question.
I can't say why. However, again, I think it just goes back to what we already discussed of not having the adequate support for our students of color and not understanding what they needed and how to give it to them and not having the adequate staff and teachers there to provide that for them. So I think it's a number of reasons as to why, and a lot of times they were sent out because of disciplinary issues or suspended numerous times because they didn't know how to deal with our students.
Wow. Very interesting.
And just recently, I know that the scores have risen a little, but again, I didn't see any of the resources being channeled to that specific group of people
Who were
where it
struggling
should
the
have been
most.
channeled to.
Right. And you would attribute that to, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do mean to put you on the spot because at some point in this chain, something was broken that stopped the continuity of those resources getting to where they needed to be gotten to.
I mean, of course, you always add the your community to come in and give their opinion and vote on what needs to be done or where the money should go. However, at the end of the day, I believe that goes right back down to your superintendent and back to your board. So
Yeah, that's where I was getting to because I think the onus of making sure that those needs are met actually fall to who we send to represent us because parents and community people don't have the time to be on top of it every day. But when you elect someone, I think it's a responsibility of elected people to make sure that those things happen, and they can explain it to the parents and the people in the community as opposed to what has been happening for years and years and years. Well, let's bring in our superintendent and he can explain it to you. Well, we didn't elect him. We elected you. And I think that's what a lot of people have missed in terms of how we don't get better results in our schools because the people we send there have no clue as to what their role is. They simply work for the superintendent.
Remember, the superintendent also has made it clear that he is able to function and make things happen without the support of the board, certain things. So that's why I said superintendent and the board.
Okay.
Right.
Well, he has some administrative power to do some things, but at the end of the day, it reverts back to all authority that the superintendent has is given to him by the governing board. In case they haven't read the ed code, that's how it works. That superintendent has a lot of authority, but it's given to him by the board of trustees. So once they relinquish
Hoping that
it,
it's being followed that way. So I
Pardon?
should say, hoping that it's being followed out that way.
no, it's not.
Hopefully
Most
it's
districts
not.
in the country, it's not like that. It's
Because the superintendent will make decisions, and when you go to the board meeting, you'll see contracts or different things that he's already signed. And then we have to vote on them. I'm like, why am I voting on this that you've already signed? You already had a contract with somebody.
So you sound like a board member. Is that what
Yeah, I am.
you've learned that in the past 7-8 months that you've been on the board? That's how
I'm saying like, why? Why am I voting on this here? You've already signed it. And then you have those that are really tight with the superintendent, And they just think about their community and where they live and who they're serving. Yeah.
Okay.
I see a lot that's happening in my district where I'm at, and it bothers me so much. So I got to
So it's pretty.
learn how to calm down.
I guess it's pretty much the same conditions in each one of the districts when you talk about the authority of a superintendent and the lack of influence by a governing board. And I think that's until that changes. Every now and then you'll find a superintendent that has the compassion and the desire to go above and beyond on behalf of the students. But in my 20 years of experience on a board, it's usually not that way. It's usually how much can I talk about getting done without actually doing the work. And so I hear from both of you that there's a lot to be done. There's still a lot to be done in terms of being able to make sure that our kids get the best education possible. Did I read you folks right?
Yeah, but you know what? And I'm not sure. Were you on the elementary school board? Is that what it was, Tia?
School district, elementary
teacher.
school, yeah. Third grade.
Teacher.
Elementary school district?
Yes.
Washington. Okay, because I'm in the high school, and I'm finding that a lot of things that you try to do as far as the high school, these kids are already in high school. They're already there. You got a whole lot that are just getting to graduate. 11th and 12th grade, they kind of like on easy street. They say, can't wait to get up out of here. But I think a lot of our changes and things need to be made at our elementary level, because that's where a lot of problems started, at the elementary level. And if we could get those people that are on that to run on our elementary level, and that are really concerned about our children, then I think we can start making some differences, see a difference in our students at the junior high and at the high school level. But I think it really has to start at the elementary school level. I think I think as board members, you'll have a whole lot more voice and a whole lot more, not so much as voice, but a whole lot more power to enact policies at the elementary school level.
What do you say about that, Mr. Cato? That sounds like a point that you would like to make, or you would like to disagree with that point?
I've just been listening to what everybody has to say, and so I've gotten, because I've been on the board, because I've been around boards, a lot of answers I already know already. So, but I do have a question. Let me back up. Tia, who is the principal and vice principal at West Fresno?
Right now, your vice principal is Ms. Rivera, and the principal. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. She's a new principal. She was there. I've never gotten a chance to work with her, but she is.
Why is that important? Rather than the position, it seems like to me the positions would be more important than the name of the individual that's working.
Because accountability. I mean, we're talking about getting information about some rights and wrongs that's going on there, perceived, however, that the district is not being, to me, it sounds like it's not being held accountable. The board is the overall say of what goes on at the school district. The superintendent, as you said, the superintendent, vice principal, whoever, they serve at the leisure of the board. They're supposed to follow the direction of the board. That doesn't happen in all cases. There are school districts where the superintendent runs everything. So, I mean, that's like everything else. Everything is not perfect, but when you're talking about test scores alone, if the test scores are low, just like when there was complaints at Fresno Unified of the same thing, outcry was made, and then it draws attention to what's not being done. So when you have test scores, which are the grade across the board for whatever school district, test scores, because you can have 3,000 students in a small school board or in a small school district, but if the test scores aren't matching up either statewide or nationally, then something's wrong. And if you're telling us that the test scores were low, especially when you did, I don't think you heard what she said. Unless I heard it wrong. If you're comparing special ed students to regular students, African American students, and those African American students' scores were lower than special ed. Do you know what special ed is? Now I am a parent of a special ed child, so that you can't. There's really nothing you can't tell me about special ed. Once again, sitting on boards with them too. So that's a different category in itself, because the testing is done different and it's on a different scale. So on a different grade. So, but just in general, if the scores are low, you have a problem. You want to go to, people want to go to the superintendent and blame the superintendent. But once again, you have to say, who is the superintendent's boss? And if he's not doing the job, why not? Who is his boss? Well, his boss is the board of the directors.
Yeah, you're right.
Of whatever school district. So that's the glaring problem, and that's being able to be picked up, because you really can't hide the test scores. You can do anything, but you really can't, because people want to use that against a school district, especially the state. So they're going to say, wait a minute, this is wrong, correct it or else, just like they did going back in time with West Fresno. That's what they used. Besides some other stuff, that's some of the stuff that they'll use against you when they're trying to prove their point that you're not administrating right. And you had to look at what was West Fresno's board. I can't speak now because I've been out of touch, but I know what the board makeup was back during years, all these years. It was 100% African American. And so when you have that automatically, you're going to have people pointing fingers and saying, we need to do something.
Scrutinizing. But
Yes.
let me just say a couple of things in terms of what you just mentioned about school boards. One of the major problems we have with school boards, even though the ultimate responsibility falls back on them, is their lack of knowledge of what their role is. And when you have someone who has power and they don't know they have the power, then you're going to have people who are just going to go along with whoever they think has the right plan and get on board with it. And I guarantee you, in 90% of the school boards in the state of California, that's how it is. They turn to their superintendent, who makes $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, and is supposed to be on top of this. And he is only doing as much as he needs to do to maintain that salary. And the other part of that is superintendents in this state have a network. They have an association that they associate with, and they are very active in that. And these guys know where the next job is going to be. The average tenure of a superintendent is about 3.5 to 4 years,
Right.
generally speaking. And when they wear out welcome here, they already have a network of folks where they can go. And when they go, they tell their buddies, hey, look, if you're going to this school, this is who you need to make sure is comfortable, and this is what you need to say to the rest of them so you can get their support.
Well, what I think is even more glaring is the problem is that with the school board, you got to count to 7 in most cases.
It's 4, majority, whatever the majority is.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have
3
a
to
7
5.
board,
So you got 4 to
right? So
4
you're
to
gonna
3.
have an odd number,
Right.
So if you run on the school board, and you might have the same mentality as 3 other people, what you want to get accomplished, you're going to get accomplished because the numbers win.
Sure.
Now, the other problem is that most people, when they run, they've come out of that community, and so which is that small circle of people who want to serve, who've been in the meetings, or somebody says, Joe, you serve because you seem like a nice guy, and we can really use you. Now, Joe may not know what he's doing, but because they want him in there, because they can count to the right
majority,
number,
yeah.
that's all it takes. When he gets in there, just like Congress, he gets in there, they're gonna put him in the closet, and this is your office. So you really don't have any power until you get to that magic number, to where no matter what you want, numbers win.
But one piece.
Right.
Go ahead, because we're going to monopolize talking. We could go on this. When you start talking about school boards, oh yeah,
So
we could
I
talk
think
about it.
it's a number of all the reasons that we've all talked about. It's a lack of knowledge. It's the personal agendas. It's your friends being in those positions. I think it's a combination of everything, which at the end of the day, your students suffer, and so everyone, superintendent is able to do what he wants to do. Staff is able to do what they want to do. There's a lack of structure, lack of direction. Again, the students suffer. So I think I hate to go into, like you said, to politics, but that's where it becomes most important for the right people to be put in the right positions to make the right things happen. And just to go back to asking for names of the principals currently at West Fresno Elementary, I do want to clear up that Miss Sandra Aguilera is the principal and Miss Patricia Rivera is the vice principal. However, I have not worked with Miss Aguilera. I work with Miss Rivera, and up until the time that I left, I did receive support from that administrator. Prior to that, Dr. Felipe Mercado was the principal, and I received a lot of support from him as well. He's no longer there, And I think, again, it's because a lot of the reasons why I'm no longer there is just not agreeing with the philosophy of the district and lack of support for doing the right thing for our students. I can't speak for him, but I'm just assuming that this is maybe one of the reasons or several reasons why he is not there anymore either. So I did hear that they're trying to make positive changes. I don't know how successful they are with that because of the current situation at the district level, but I know that they are aware and they're trying. Prior to that, I don't know.
What do you see as a new board member? What do you see as a challenge for a change in your district? If you think there needs to be change in your district, what do you see as a major challenge for that, Miss Massey?
I tell you what, I do see it. There needs to be a change, and we got 3 seats coming up in 2022, and those are the seats that need to be changed. Okay.
Oh, she went straight to the politics.
I
Oh,
do.
You might as
Because
well go ahead and name them.
I do know that they talk among each other, and if I send something to the board president to put on the agenda, she'll send the information over to the superintendent. I know they meet together and to get the agenda together, but then he'll respond back to me, and he always is trying to say, well, this is why we won't do this. He's always trying to make it like, okay, what you're saying is not quite right, but we're going to do it this way. And he doesn't understand that I'm your boss. What you talking? Or when I say something about something happening over at one of the alternative schools, oh, it just didn't work. Well, what is this didn't work out? It all needs to change. A lot of, and like you said, we need to know who we're voting for. Sometimes that stuff just go past for a long time. I didn't vote for
school board.
Vote for board members because I didn't know who they were. And it's like, oh, they've been there. Okay, that name sounds good. That name sounds good. And then you're on there, like in my elementary school district, she's been on there going on 20. By the time she finished, she'll be on there for 24 years. Heck to the no. What? Johnny still can't read at your school. So what's happening? What are you bringing forth? So I think there need to be some term limits there. And I think we need to, in my community, we need to think about running for office, getting some people who really care about children. But, you know, like you said, Tia, it's just going to take the community coming together, bombarding those meetings all the time. Because when they were talking about coming back to school and mask mandates, we had all these parents show up and not one of them were Black. So, you know, I mean, nothing changed, but still they had a chance to say their voice. When at one of the schools, the kids wanted to eliminate the dress code. We only had like 1 or 2 people that show up there, kids that showed up that looked like me. Other than that, So I think the parents, our community needs to be more aware of what the school board is and what they do and what they're capable of doing. So and get some people in there that could make a difference.
And which leads me back to the point I was trying to make earlier. I think it all starts with education to the community about the job and the role of a school board member and the authority that they have and understanding how to exercise that. Because you can have a great heart for kids, but if you don't know what the rules are, they will let you go through the motions and act as if they're really trying to help you. But if you don't know how to maneuver through there and know what Robert Rules of Orders and the Brown Act is all about and how to get things on the agenda, they'll let you go there for 4 years. And while you're trying to be a good person to the community, your term is up and they've already noticed who they want to run for your seat. And they're building the support to get you out of there. So, you know, you have to consider that politics in it because that's what it is. At the end of the day, you have to be, on tune with that. Because if you don't, man, you wonder, well, I thought I was doing a great job. But they will take your words, your very words that you meant for well, and turn around and use them against you and say that she's not suited for this kind of a job. She's too demanding, and, you know, she's hard to work with, and she's not, everything negative about, and it doesn't really matter about
I'm an angry Black woman.
Well, it doesn't really matter about your ethnicity if you're talking about the right issues. They will
But that's
make
what they'll
sure.
pull up. They'll pull up all that stuff.
Yeah, so you have to be aware of that, and you have to be working with community folks to educate them so that they can have your back. A lot of times they wouldn't. They would have your back if they knew what was going on. And in the African American community, most people find out after it's too late. They're paying, instead of being on the front side, they're on the back side. So those are the things that. Anything else? We got about a minute and a half left for you, Ms. Cruz. Anything else you'd like to share before you leave us? Because we're going to shift in a few seconds.
Maybe just a question. What we just talked about, what we just touched upon, isn't that more part of a systemic problem with our African American community and our parents not being comfortable enough to come on campus and to have a voice for their student or to come to the board meetings, as well as not having a understanding of their rights and their power, and not even being allowed to understand or be put in a position to be taught that. So therefore, it's just a bigger problem than it actually has to be. And so it makes it more of a challenge for us to not to just educate our community and our parents, but we have to just change the mindset and let them know what should be done and what could be done for their students in our community.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I do see in Hispanic community in my area, they're doing it. They're having those meetings. They're showing up. If they have to have a person speaking Spanish and a person speaking English, they'll do that because they know they're going to have the Spanish speaking parents there, and they will show up and grow.
Well, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back in a minute. But Brother Cato, it's the same old thing over and over again. When you start talking about leadership and the vision of leaders and how they can help move things forward, we suffer from the same things on and on and on because we don't seem to have the commitment of folks like we used to 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, when there was leadership, especially among the ministers who showed up to make sure that they defended their congregants when they had challenges in any arena, not only education, but your job for the state, your job at the county. They were there. They were, trying to make sure you got your streets, recovered like they needed to resurface. But man, what has happened in the past 30 years that have, changed how things are for us?
I think people just have got to the point where it's about me. I don't have time to be worrying about what's going on outside of my house anymore because all I have time to do is just go to work.
But is that by design? Because you always need somebody else. No man is an island to himself.
It's not. I don't think it's so much by design. It's just time has let it migrate to that point. People just worried about me. Let alone to throw in this pandemic. I mean, that changed everything.
Yeah.
And trying to get back to the norm I don't think this is going to ever happen.
You don't think we'll ever get back to the place where we'll be able to meet at a board meeting and crowd the board meeting out and protest and do those kinds of things?
The gauge is going to be, look at masks. When masks were on the debate, the question was, you looked in the room at these folks, those folks. I get to use that now because they use it on us. Those folks were the first ones who crowded the room and said, I'm not wearing a mask. So, that it can be done. It's just I don't see us folks getting there again, not to that level, not unless something is really horribly wrong.
It is. Our kids are still among the bottom when it comes to education. If you're looking at the education arena, even at the jobs arena, man, you look at the state jobs, the city jobs, the county jobs, we're not where we used to be.
No.
So
it used to be the supervisor was black.
Right.
His assistant was black. You probably had to go down maybe 3 or 4 or 5, if maybe 6, to find a Hispanic that was down there. I mean, those days are gone. And they will never return.
Well, maybe because, and I think there's something to equity in terms of having representation throughout based on the equity formula.
We just went through this year. I believe this year, where Fresno City was going to, unless they have, what do they call it? Not a review, not a, where they wanted to set up, closest word is review of the hiring practices to see why certain African Americans weren't being recruited in certain areas or hired. I haven't heard anything else
You
about
talking about
that.
City College or you said City
no,
of Fresno?
City of Fresno.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I know that had to be this year. This year went fast, but it didn't go that fast. That was this year where that issue came up. They were talking about having a panel. That's what it was.
Yeah,
They were talking about having a panel. What happened to the panel? Oh, I know, it's still going on. So in the year 6073, I guess we'll hear the
But I
results of that
believe a lot of
panel.
that has to do with our representation on the city council. Because right now, we have no African American on the city council. And we've had one on there for a number of years prior to the last 3 years.
Okay. What representation took over an African American?
Well, the number
position?
that grew. When you talk about the growth, the number of Hispanics in this community has grown.
Okay.
So they are entitled to have representation. I
that's-
understand that, and I
and-
don't have a problem with that.
and welcome
But
you
the
to the
problem
board.
I have is equity, meaning we need to have a proportionate number of seats or jobs or positions of influence
Well,
as everyone else. Because
but the
if you don't have it, you will be left out. Without that kind
You're
of
right.
funding, you'll be left out.
You're right, but the problem happened is that it used to be back when we were kids that the majority of African Americans lived in West Fresno,
Okay.
and so you don't have that now. So that representation number went down to basically 1 out of 10.
But it's been like that for how many years?
Yes, and
And we still were able to overcome that. I don't think that's the problem.
where was the last representation come out? What district?
It came out of District 3 in Southwest Fresno, but that's
Okay.
not. We are African Americans are all over the city. In all 7 districts, African Americans reside.
Right, but-
what our
right.
problem is we do not use our numbers to influence the policies of those folks who are elected from those other areas.
Well,
because that's the most important
that
thing.
too.
Not necessarily who.
It's not just that, because when you had, and we're not going to name anybody, unless you want to, and I'll back you up. But we had somebody that would not even go on the radio and speak and tell you their position about anything because they were afraid to say the wrong thing or whatever the reason was. Couldn't understand.
Well, he was the wrong person to be elected. To put it like that.
Well,
But
what?
that does not negate the fact that there was a need to have someone speak to that.
True.
He
but-
was not the one. He had another agenda. It wasn't the agenda that dealt with, what was comfortable for most African Americans. Although when he was at a meeting in the public where African Americans were present, oh yeah, he was a great speaker. He was a tremendous orator. But in terms of following up with his heart, wasn't there. So
Okay.
I'm saying this: when it comes to representation, it's more important about the willingness of that representative to make sure that equity abounds, as opposed to having someone of color sitting in that seat to ensure that having someone of color, like we were just talking about the gentleman that was there before.
Right.
He
Doesn't
was our
guarantee-
color,
it doesn't
but he wasn't our
guarantee you-
kind.
Right.
So that tells me that you need someone that is committed, has the expertise. See, if you have the expertise to be a politician, and that's what you are, that's what you do. You don't call for a baker to come in and to be a politician, because that's not what he does. But if you want results, you get a politician. And one thing we have to do as a community, we have to stop being so colorblind and saying we got to have somebody that looks like us because they're going to look after our best interests. No, they're not.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not
History says
it
no,
helps.
they're not.
I think it helps. I guess I have to backtrack because there has been some of us's that we really didn't need.
Yeah, exactly.
out there
And we can
speaking
count,
for
and we
us.
can count, and we can count, and we can
Right.
count, and we can find out, who helped us and who didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we need to go beyond that. We need to look at expertise
You're right.
of the individual.
I regress. You're right. You're right.
Because unless you're someone like a Paula Massey, who has been in the community for years and has demonstrated her
And
commitment
in
to
the
a community.
trenches and
Yes, then you can count on that individual that may look like you, but let me tell you something about them. they're fair-minded. They're not going to forget the rest of the people either. What I've known of her over the years is not only is she going to talk up for her people, but she's going to talk out for those other folks who have been disadvantaged too.
Right is right. She's one of those people that right is right.
And sometimes that's to your own detriment, Miss Massey, because there's going to be several people that don't like it like that. They like it the way they have it, and you're going to be a perfect target. So they're going to be coming after you in the next 2 years. When's your term up?
2024.
When is your term up? I didn't quite hear. Oh, okay.
Did you hear me? 2024.
Oh yeah. See that you got enough time to kind of protect yourself, but I will guarantee.
Wait. Yeah.
They're coming for you.
I already know that. Today I did something. My organization, Women with Visions Unlimited, our organization, we're doing diagnostic testing at one of the local apartment complexes down the street from me, Lincoln Plaza. So today we went out and we handed out. Yesterday I went and I put the big flyers up in the laundry room.
Diagnostic testing. You testing cars?
Huh?
You testing cars?
No, we're doing diagnostic testing for reading and math.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm doing.
We need to hear what
you got us hold of a picture.
We're doing diagnostic testing for literacy for children.
Okay.
Elementary school children, junior high, and we're doing math and reading.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I went and put the big flyers up in the apartment complex on the door and then in the laundromat. Today, me and Carolyn went out and we put each flyer on each door. Let them know that they can sign their children up. This is when you need to turn the paperwork in. Mm-hmm. And as I was sitting at home earlier, I thought about diagnostic testing. So when you go to the doctor and you go get diagnostic testing and you get a prescription, a lot of times the prescriptions that we get they keep us on those prescriptions. They're not healing any daggone thing. They just diagnose us. They want to keep it going so they can keep getting the money, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought about the diagnostic testing that we do. We do the testing so we can find out where the children's gaps are. And doing those gaps and reaching those gaps, which it is to move the child forward out of that same area that they're in. Whatever they were diagnosed with, we want them to kind of get healed and move forward so they can continue on with their education. Mm-hmm. One thing that I decided to do after doing this, I want to, and of the parents who sign their children up, and I don't know how many are going to sign their children up. Maybe none, I don't know, but we're going to do what we need to do. And I want to have a meeting with those parents to let them know, just like we were talking earlier, what the role of the school board is, what the role of the education. These report cards just came out. So parents know where their child is suffering and what's going on. Mm-hmm. I've talked to different parents. I've did diagnostic testing over before school was starting again. It's up to the parents, really. But I tell you what, those Mexican parents, they will stick together. They will get those little bambinos together, and they will work with them kids because they have that. The Filipino group of people, they work together. The Portuguese people, they work together. I don't see us. Only time we really gonna come together, we're gonna come together in church. We're gonna say Jesus wept. Jesus is still weeping. Okay, he's weeping because you're not doing anything you need to do in your community. Whoever's listening, I'm sorry.
Hey, Paula.
I love you. I love your people. I love your people, but I'm telling you the truth. Go ahead.
Hey, Paula.
Yes, sir.
Can I give you a word of advice?
What's that?
And it's free. So next time you have a meeting or you send off an email or something, leave that angry black woman. Just leave her behind, because see, that's your problem. See,
I'm not an angry black woman. Yeah. I'm a person. I'm not an angry black woman. I'm just a woman that's going to tell the truth, because what we've been hiding is behind, because we don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. We don't want to hurt your feelings. We don't want to make you feel bad at what you're not doing. Okay, it's time out for that. It is time out for not hurting people. And I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm worried about these babies. Let me tell you something. In our city council, and anybody we don't have not one black person working in the city offices who are making decisions, that are taking paperwork, that are doing your business license. Most of our black people that are working in the city, they don't even drive the doggone garbage cans, the garbage trucks. They're out there picking trash. They're cleaning up the toilets in the parks and stuff, and doing that. That's what they're doing. cutting down trees and picking up trash. And so that's what I'm like. Why? Because they're not educated enough to work in, they don't think, they don't think that they're capable of filling out an application and working in the city, applying for a job in the city. Most of our people that work for the city in Hanford, they're from Tulare County. I'm sick of that. I am so sick of that because we need people, our people, and in key places. And the only way our people are going to get it, our young people are going to get in key places, because I'm old. The only way we're going to get in key places is if we start telling, like she said, make sure they know who they are. My parents were they call it a silent generation. Okay, my mom and them, they lived through the civil rights and stuff, but they didn't tell us nothing about it unless the stuff we see on TV now. Why didn't you tell us about it, Mom? And then maybe our children could be a whole lot better off. Our children could be better off because they know who they are, they know where they come from, they know what happened, now they know where they could go. I'm not angry. I'm just going to tell the truth.
Yeah, all right, just keep that finger down because you keep waving it. So,
I talk with my hands. I'm sorry.
yeah, okay. and the head going from the side to side. Stop doing that too.
Not going side to side. Was my head going side to side?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
I was listening to your words. I
No.
didn't
But I'm not an angry black woman. I will work with the best of them that want to work with me. And I tell you what, I have a lot more white people that are willing to work with me than I have my brothers and sisters. Like you said, they may be my color, but they're not my kind. I have right now at the table that we were sitting at. This guy I introduced you to, Jack Swartz, who was sitting. The lady was sitting between him and Teddy. The lady who was sitting between him and Teddy, the guy on the other side. He's a new curator over our museum, and we met on Monday. And he wants me to get together and get people to do African American Black History exhibit. It's going to last over a month at the museum. So I have to get with people now to get displays and stuff in there.
So hold that thought because we're just about out of time. And maybe the next show we can spend some time talking about that, talking about what that looks like and what help you would need to help make that a successful venture. You're talking about February for that to come off?
Yes, in February.
Okay, well,
Black History Month, yeah.
Let's pick that up on our next conversation 2 weeks from now. But we hope you all have enjoyed the program for today. We had fun talking. I guess you can tell that. And we're going to do this again. So until then, this is Mel Sanders along with Cato and Miss Paula Massey saying good night, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Good night, everybody.
Love you guys. Love you guys. Take care.